Dr. Maya Rodriguez was elbow-deep in alien fungus samples when the hologram appeared in her lab. Not the kind of Tuesday she'd been expecting, but then again, discovering sentient mold hadn't exactly been on her Monday agenda either. "Greetings, Dr. Rodriguez," the shimmering blue figure announced with all the warmth of a customer service recording. "I am diplomatic envoy Thresh of the Galactic Council. We have been observing your species with great interest." Maya didn't look up from her microscope. "Yeah, I bet you have. Let me guess, you're here to either conquer us, study us, or recruit us for some galactic war we don't understand. Which door are we picking today?" The hologram flickered. "Probably not programmed for human sarcasm. We wish to extend an invitation for you to join our human integration program as Earth's first cultural liaison." Cultural liaison. Maya finally looked up, raising an eyebrow. "That's a fancy way of saying guinea pig, isn't it?" "We assure you, this is a position of great honor and responsibility. You would be helping to bridge the gap between human and galactic civilization." Maya leaned back in her chair, studying the alien diplomat. Thresh looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a corporate executive and given it a superiority complex. The whole setup screamed ulterior motives, but Maya had to admit she was curious. Plus, her student loans weren't going to pay themselves, and her current salary barely covered ramen noodles, let alone interstellar travel. "What's the catch?" she asked. "There's always a catch with you mysterious alien types." "No catch, Dr. Rodriguez. Simply an opportunity to represent your species and learn about the greater galactic community. Think of it as an extended cultural exchange program." Right. And Maya was the Queen of Mars. She'd spent enough time studying alien biology to recognize a manipulation attempt when she saw one. These beings had probably been watching humanity for decades, cataloging their chaotic tendencies and wondering how to contain them. What better way than to grab one of their scientists and figure out what made humans tick? "All expenses paid?" she asked. "Naturally, plus a generous stipend and access to our most advanced research facilities." Maya did some quick mental math. Free food, free housing, and a front row seat to whatever scheme the aliens were cooking up. Not to mention the research opportunities that would make her colleagues back on Earth weep with envy. She could always bail if things got too weird, and honestly, how much weirder could it get than discovering that mushrooms from Proxima Centauri could hold philosophical debates? "When do I leave?" "Immediately, if you are agreeable. We have prepared transport." Of course they had. Maya glanced around her cramped lab, then at her mountain of unpaid bills on the desk. The choice wasn't exactly difficult. Either stay on Earth and continue scraping by as an underpaid researcher, or take a free trip to space with beings who were obviously up to something but at least had the courtesy to be transparent about their shadiness. "Fine," she said, grabbing her laptop and a few personal items. "But I'm keeping a journal. And if you try to probe me or turn me into some kind of alien zombie, I'm going to make your lives very difficult." Thresh's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "I assure you, Dr. Rodriguez, we have no intention of harming you. This partnership will be mutually beneficial." Maya snorted. "Right. That's exactly what someone planning to mess with my brain would say. But hey, beats grading undergraduate papers for the rest of my life." As the transport beam activated, Maya couldn't help but grin. Whatever the aliens had planned, they clearly hadn't done their homework on human nature. They probably thought they were recruiting some naive scientist they could easily manipulate. Too bad for them, she'd grown up with 3 older brothers and a mother who ran a used car dealership. She'd been dealing with manipulation attempts since kindergarten. This was going to be fun. The Galactic Council station looked exactly like what Maya had expected from a bureaucratic nightmare crossed with a space mall. Gleaming corridors stretched in impossible directions, filled with aliens of every conceivable shape and size, all looking very important and slightly constipated. The air recycling system pumped out something that smelled like vanilla mixed with despair. "Dr. Rodriguez, welcome to Central Hub Omega 7, announced her first handler, a gelatinous blob roughly the size of a refrigerator. "I am Ambassador Quelch, your primary integration coordinator." Together, we will facilitate your seamless transition into our galactic paradigm. Maya blinked. Did you just use facilitate and paradigm in the same sentence unironically? Quelch's surface rippled with what might have been confusion. I believe there has been a linguistic miscommunication. Perhaps we should circle back and touch base on our core competencies moving forward. Oh no, Maya muttered. You're one of those aliens. Before Quelch could respond with more corporate speak, a new figure approached. This one looked like someone had given a lizard military training and way too much caffeine. Sharp angles, precise movements, and eyes that constantly scanned for threats that probably didn't exist. Dr. Rodriguez, the newcomer barked. Commander Vex, security liaison. Your quarters have been secured, your dietary requirements analyzed, and your psychological profile updated. Mission parameters are clear. Maya looked between the blob spouting buzzwords and the paranoid military lizard. Let me guess. Good cop, bad cop routine? Except instead of cops, it's middle management, and someone who thinks lunch is a tactical exercise. Lunch is a tactical exercise, Vex replied seriously. Proper nutrition maintains peak operational efficiency. Meal times are scheduled at 0800, 1300, and 1900 hours. Deviation from schedule compromises mission integrity. See, this is why humans are going to be a problem for you, Maya said, pulling out her phone to start recording. We eat when we're hungry, sleep when we're tired, and make decisions based on whatever random thought pops into our heads. Your whole system is designed for predictable behavior patterns. Quelch gurgled nervously. Dr. Rodriguez, we simply want to leverage your unique human perspectives to optimize our cross-cultural synergies. Right. And I'm sure the neural adjustment chamber I passed on the way here is just for optimizing my synergies too. Both aliens went very still. Maya grinned. Nothing like letting them know she'd been paying attention to confirm her suspicions. The Harmony Inducer is simply a wellness facility, Vex said carefully. Designed to help new arrivals adjust to station life. Many species find the transition challenging. And I bet it has nothing to do with making sure I don't cause any inconvenient chaos while I'm here. Maya made a note in her phone. Tell me, do all cultural liaisons get the Harmony treatment, or just the humans? Quelch's surface was now actively bubbling. Perhaps we should focus on getting you settled in your quarters. There will be plenty of time for questions during your orientation process. Maya followed them through more impossible corridors, past aliens engaged in what looked like very serious discussions about very boring topics. Everything was clean, organized, and sterile. It was like someone had designed a space station based on the most soul-crushing office building imaginable. Her quarters turned out to be a small but comfortable suite with a bed that looked suspiciously like it had been designed for human anatomy. Either they'd done their research, or they'd been planning this for a while. Possibly both. Your schedule will be transmitted to your personal device, Vex announced. Orientation begins at 0600 hours. Punctuality is essential. And we'll be conducting regular check-ins to ensure your integration progress stays on track, Quelch added. It's all about maintaining optimal stakeholder satisfaction. After they left, Maya flopped onto the bed and started reviewing her notes. These aliens were about as subtle as a brick through a window. They clearly wanted to study her, probably mess with her head a bit, and figure out how to handle the human problem. Before Earth became a bigger player in galactic politics. The funny thing was, they seemed to think they were the smart ones in this scenario. Like humans hadn't spent millennia dealing with would-be conquerors, manipulative politicians, and overly enthusiastic middle managers. Maya had been handling types like Quelch and Vex since her first corporate internship. She pulled up the station's information network on her device, pretending to browse entertainment options while actually mapping out security protocols and communication systems. If these aliens wanted to play games, she'd show them what a properly motivated human could accomplish with too much time and a grudge against authority figures. Tomorrow's orientation should be interesting. The Harmony Inducer looked like someone had crossed a dentist's chair with a disco ball and given it delusions of grandeur. Colored lights pulsed in patterns that were probably supposed to be soothing but mostly made Maya think of the world's most pretentious nightclub. "This is really necessary?" she asked, eyeing the helmet covered in what looked like alien Christmas lights. "Absolutely essential," Quelch burbled from his position at the control console. "The Harmony Inducer helps new species adapt to our collective consciousness framework. It's all about optimizing your neural pathways for maximum galactic citizenship potential." Maya snorted. "You do realize that sentence made no actual sense, right?" Commander Vex stepped forward with military precision. "The process is completely safe, Dr. Rodriguez. Thousands of species have undergone harmony integration with zero casualties." "Zero casualties that you know of," Maya muttered, but she settled into the chair anyway. She'd expected this moment, since arriving on the station. The aliens clearly wanted to mess with her head, and she was curious to see what would happen when human neurology met alien overconfidence. "Just relax and let the harmonization process do its work," Quelch advised, activating the machine. "You may experience some mild disorientation as your thought patterns align with galactic standard parameters." The helmet descended over Maya's head with a soft hum. Immediately, she felt a strange tingling sensation, like someone was gently probing her brain with electric feathers. The aliens had obviously done their homework on neural manipulation, but Maya suspected they'd made one critical error. They'd assumed human brains worked like everyone else's. The tingling intensified, and Maya could feel something trying to impose order on her thoughts. Neat little categories and logical pathways where her natural chaos used to reign. It was like someone was trying to organize a hurricane using color-coded filing systems. "Integration at 15%, Vex reported, neural patterns showing expected compliance markers." Maya almost laughed. Her brain was fighting the process on every level, throwing up contradictions and random thoughts faster than the machine could process them. Were the aliens expected logical responses, she was thinking about pizza recipes and whether cats would make good spaceship pilots. Where they wanted compliance, she was mentally composing strongly worded letters to their customer service department. "Hey Mum," Quelch mused. "Some unusual readings here. Increasing harmonization intensity." The machine's hum grew louder, and Maya felt the mental pressure increase. But instead of forcing her thoughts into alien-approved patterns, something else was happening. The connection was working both ways. As the machine tried to read her mind, she was reading the machine. And through the machine, she was reading everything else. Suddenly, Maya could hear the whispered thoughts of aliens 3 sectors away. She could sense the flow of information through the station's communication networks. The Council's private channels opened up like flowers blooming in her consciousness, revealing conversations, plans, and secrets that made her previous suspicions look like child's play. "Integration at 90%, Vex announced. "Compliance indicators are." He paused, staring at his readings. Maya kept her face carefully blank while her mind exploded with new information. The aliens weren't just planning to study humanity, they were planning to neuter it entirely. Remove the chaotic element that made humans unpredictable. Turn them into just another compliant species in their galactic filing system. "Interesting," she said aloud, testing her new abilities. "I feel much more harmonious." Through the network, she could sense Quelch's satisfaction and Vex's professional pride. They thought they'd succeeded. They had no idea that human brains were apparently so chaotic that their harmony device couldn't handle the feedback loop. Instead of controlling her thoughts, they'd given her access to everyone else's. "Process complete," Quelch announced, deactivating the machine. "How do you feel, Dr. Rodriguez?" Maya stretched as the helmet lifted, pretending to assess her mental state while actually exploring the vast network now available to her consciousness. Every alien on the station was like an open book. Every communication channel was suddenly readable. The Council's most classified databases were spread out before her like a buffet of blackmail material. "I feel great," she said honestly. "Really connected to everything around here. More connected than they could possibly imagine." As the aliens ran their post-procedure tests, Maya was already planning how to use her new abilities. She could hear Ambassador Quelch thinking about his report to the High Council about the successful human integration. She could sense Commander Vex's relief that the procedure had gone smoothly. If only they knew that their successful mind control had just handed a chaos-loving human the keys to their entire civilization. Maya smiled serenely as they escorted her back to her quarters, all the while listening to the secret thoughts of every alien she passed. The Council thought they were so clever, so advanced compared to primitive humanity. They were about to learn why underestimating humans was a really, really bad idea. Maya's first week as the galaxy's most accidentally overpowered telepath was like drinking from a fire hose made of pure information. Every alien thought, every classified communication, every secret meeting was suddenly available to her consciousness. It was overwhelming, enlightening, and absolutely infuriating. The Galactic Council wasn't just corrupt, they were impressively, creatively corrupt. They'd been manipulating interstellar trade routes to benefit their member species while leaving developing civilizations in economic dead zones. They'd suppressed dozens of technological innovations that might have disrupted their power structure. And worst of all, they'd canceled cooking across the cosmos. The galaxy's most beloved cooking show, because the host kept encouraging viewers to think outside the traditional flavor paradigm. Maya took that last one personally. She'd actually managed to catch a few episodes during her first week on the station, and they were genuinely entertaining. The host, a six-armed chef named Blix, had a way of combining ingredients from different worlds that created entirely new taste experiences. The Council had shut it down because they decided culinary creativity was a gateway to dangerous independent thinking. Dr. Rodriguez, Ambassador Quelch, oozed into her quarters during one of their scheduled check-ins. "How are you finding your integration process?" Maya looked up from her tablet, where she'd been pretending to read station regulations while actually monitoring a High Council meeting about the human problem. "Oh, just wonderfully harmonious, Ambassador. I feel so much more aligned with everyone's thinking." Through the mental network, she could sense Quelch's smug satisfaction. He was already planning his promotion based on the successful human pacification project. Commander Vex, standing beside him, was thinking about how to apply the harmony process to other problematic species. "Excellent," Quelch gurgled. "We have some exciting opportunities for you to contribute to our cultural exchange initiatives." Maya smiled. "I'd love to help. Actually, I've been having some interesting thoughts about improving interspecies cooperation." Very harmonious thoughts. What she didn't mention was that her harmonious thoughts involved exposing every single one of their schemes to the rest of the galaxy. She'd already started planting seeds of information in strategic places, feeding anonymous tips to investigative journalists from various species, and subtly influencing other council members to ask inconvenient questions. The beauty of telepathy was that nobody suspected the quiet human observer. While they debated and schemed in their meeting rooms, Maya was 3 steps ahead, orchestrating their downfall from her supposedly harmless position as cultural liaison. "We're particularly interested in your insights about human unpredictability," Vex said, consulting his ever-present tactical pad. "Our analysts are struggling to develop predictive models for human behavior patterns." Maya almost laughed. They wanted her help understanding human chaos while she was actively demonstrating it by infiltrating their entire power structure. "Well, Commander, I think the key is understanding that humans don't really operate on predictable patterns. We tend to respond to situations based on immediate circumstances and emotional reactions." "Emotional reactions," Quelch repeated thoughtfully. "Yes, our preliminary studies suggest human decision-making is heavily influenced by irrational emotional factors." "Exactly," Maya agreed. "For example, if humans discovered that a powerful organization was manipulating them, they'd probably get really angry about it. Like unreasonably angry. They might do something completely unpredictable out of spite." Both aliens nodded seriously, completely missing the warning she'd just given them. Through the network, Maya could sense their thoughts turning to damage control strategies and containment protocols. They were so focused on managing threats they couldn't see that the threat was sitting right in front of them, smiling politely and offering helpful insights. After they left, Maya got back to work. She'd identified key pressure points in the Council's power structure, communication networks that could be hijacked, and several alien journalists who were already suspicious about council activities. The trick was making everything look organic, like a natural uprising, rather than a coordinated attack. She started with the economic manipulation scandal, feeding detailed financial records to an investigative reporter on Kepler Station. The reporter, a sharp-eyed alien named Trix who reminded Maya of a cross between a ferret and a private detective, had been digging into council trade policies for months. Maya's anonymous data dump gave her everything she needed to blow the story wide open. Next, she turned her attention to the technological suppression files. There was a brilliant inventor on Tau Ceti who'd been trying for years to get patents approved for a revolutionary faster-than-light communication system. The council kept rejecting his applications with vague excuses about technical incompatibility. Maya leaked the real reasons, showing how the technology would have disrupted the council's communication monopoly. But the cooking show cancellation, that required a more personal touch. Maya had been monitoring Blix's communications and discovered the chef was planning to start an underground cooking movement. She subtly directed him to the perfect funding sources and helped him connect with other disgruntled artists across the galaxy. By the end of the week, Maya had set at least a dozen investigative dominoes in motion, all while maintaining her cover as the perfectly harmonized human cultural liaison. The council thought they'd neutralized humanity's chaotic potential. They were about to learn that human chaos wasn't a bug in their programming, it was a feature. 2 months into her tenure as the galaxy's most dangerous cultural liaison, Maya had orchestrated enough coincidences to make a conspiracy theorist weep with joy. The beauty of having telepathic access to everyone's thoughts was that she always knew exactly which buttons to push and when to push them. The first crack in the council's facade appeared during a routine trade negotiation meeting. Maya had positioned herself in her usual spot, as the quiet human observer, taking notes on cultural exchange protocols while mentally puppeteering the biggest political scandal in galactic history. "I believe the Andorian delegation has some concerns about shipping routes," she said innocently, knowing full well that she'd spent the previous week feeding those concerns through carefully planted evidence. Ambassador Quelch rippled nervously. Through the mental network, Maya could sense his growing anxiety about the increasingly aggressive questions from council members. He had no idea that she'd been the one feeding anonymous tips to journalists, connecting dots between seemingly unrelated events, and ensuring that every investigation led back to the council's systematic corruption. "Perhaps," Quelch said carefully, "we should table this discussion until we've had time to review the recent irregularities in our trade data." Maya bit back a smile. Those irregularities were her masterpiece. She'd managed to make it look like a random audit had uncovered the economic manipulation scheme, when in reality she'd guided every step of the investigation. The Andorian delegate, a sharp-minded alien who reminded Maya of an accountant crossed with a detective, had been particularly helpful in asking all the right questions at all the right times. Commander Vex leaned forward, his reptilian features tense with suspicious. "Dr. Rodriguez, as our human cultural expert, do you have any insights about these unusual coincidences? Multiple investigations targeting council operations simultaneously seems improbable." Maya shrugged, the picture of innocent confusion. "Well, Commander, humans have a saying, the truth has a way of coming out. Sometimes when organizations have been covering up problems for a long time, everything starts unraveling at once. It's like a dam breaking." Through the network, she could feel Vex's growing paranoia. He was starting to suspect coordinated action, but he couldn't figure out how anyone could have orchestrated such a complex series of exposures. Maya was careful to keep her own thoughts shielded behind the mental static that seemed to be a natural byproduct of human neural chaos. The meeting broke up in confusion, giving Maya the perfect opportunity to implement the next phase of her plan. She'd been saving the best revelation for last, the complete recordings of private council meetings where high-ranking officials discussed their plans to subjugate developing species. She'd found the perfect delivery method too. Felix, the exiled cooking show host, had built up a massive underground following for his rebel cooking broadcasts. His audience included representatives from dozens of species, many of whom had been directly harmed by council policies. If Maya could get him to accidentally broadcast the recordings during his next show, Helix, she whispered into the communication system during his live broadcast, using the telepathic network to make her voice sound like technical interference. Check your secondary data stream. Someone's trying to send you something important. On screens across the galaxy, millions of viewers watched their beloved chef pause mid-recipe to investigate the mysterious transmission. Maya had timed everything perfectly. The recordings would look like they'd been leaked by a whistleblower, broadcast accidentally during the galaxy's most popular underground show. By the 7 moons of Altair, Blix gasped as the first recording played. This is the High Council discussing the Zephyrian trade embargo. They're talking about starving an entire planet to maintain their spice monopoly. Maya settled back in her quarters to watch the galaxy explode. Within minutes, the recordings were being shared across every communication network she had access to. Outraged citizens were demanding answers from their representatives. Smaller species were forming emergency coalitions. The Council's carefully maintained order was crumbling faster than a souffle in an earthquake. Her door chimed, and both Quelch and Vex entered without waiting for permission. Their faces, such as they were, showed a mixture of panic and desperate determination. "Dr. Rodriguez," Quelch burbled urgently, "we need your help. Someone has been systematically attacking Council operations. Your expertise in human unpredictability might help us identify the perpetrator." Maya looked up from her tablet, where she'd been monitoring the real-time collapse of galactic civilization with the satisfaction of a chess grandmaster executing a perfect endgame. "That's terrible, Ambassador. Do you have any leads?" "The attacks show signs of human-style thinking," Vex said grimly. "Chaotic, unpredictable, but strategically coordinated. We believe another human operative may have infiltrated the station." Maya gasped, channeling her best dramatic performance. "Another human. But I thought I was the only one selected for the cultural exchange program." Through the network, she could sense their growing desperation. They were so focused on external threats that they couldn't see the obvious answer. The perfectly harmonized human sitting right in front of them, who had access to everything they'd tried to hide, who had been present at every meeting where their secrets were discussed. "We need to implement emergency security protocols," Vex announced. "Full-spectrum surveillance and neural scanning for all station personnel." Maya nodded sympathetically while mentally noting that their security protocols were about as effective as a screen door on a spaceship. She'd been listening to their thoughts for months. She knew every security measure they had, every contingency plan they'd developed. "I'll do whatever I can to help," she promised. "After all, we can't let chaos agents destroy everything we've worked to build together." As the galaxy burned around them, Maya reflected on the beautiful irony of the situation. The Council had tried to eliminate human unpredictability by harmonizing her thought patterns. Instead, they'd created the perfect infiltrator, someone who could think like them but act like a human. The revolution was just getting started. 6 months later, Maya stood on the observation deck of the newly restructured Galactic Council station, watching the first Earth tourism ship dock at the civilian ports. The Wanderlust Express was a converted cargo hauler that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never actually seen space before. But it carried humanity's first official ambassadors to the stars. 300 confused but enthusiastic tourists armed with cameras and an unshakable belief that alien food couldn't possibly be weirder than haggis. "Counselor Rodriguez," said her new assistant, a nervous young alien named Pip, who looked like a cross between a butterfly and an accountant. "The Earth delegation is requesting permission to set up what they call a gift shop in the commercial district." Maya sighed and made a note on her tablet. In the months since the Great Council collapse, as historians were already calling it, she'd learned that managing a galactic government was somehow even more chaotic than infiltrating one. "Tell them they can have space next to the Andronian Cultural Center. But if they start selling t-shirts that say my human went to space, and all I got was this lousy shirt, there will be consequences." The revolution she'd orchestrated had played out exactly as planned. The leaked recordings had sparked massive civil unrest across dozens of worlds. The old council structure had crumbled within weeks, replaced by an emergency coalition government that somehow, through a series of carefully orchestrated coincidences, had elected her as interim leader. Maya still wasn't entirely sure how she'd managed to manipulate that particular outcome. It had involved a lot of strategic information placement, some judicious telepathic nudging, and one memorable incident where she'd convinced 3 different species that forming an alliance with Earth was their own idea. The best part was that nobody suspected her. The official story was that Dr. Maya Rodriguez, innocent cultural liaison, had been heroically trying to bridge human-alien relations when the corruption scandal broke. Her subsequent rise to leadership was portrayed as a reluctant acceptance of responsibility during a galactic crisis. Counselor, Pip continued nervously. We've also received a request from Commander Vex. He's asking for a transfer to the Outer Rim Security Patrol. Maya tried not to smile. Vex had been one of the few council members to survive the purges, mainly because Maya needed someone with military experience to handle the more violent aspects of governmental transition. But the poor lizard was clearly struggling with the new reality where his carefully ordered universe had been replaced by what he called managed chaos theory. Approved, she said. He'll be happier chasing pirates than trying to file reports on human tourist behavior. Ambassador Quelch hadn't been so lucky. The former council member had been implicated in so many corruption scandals that he'd fled to a non-extradition planet somewhere in the Vega system. Maya occasionally picked up his panicked thoughts through the telepathic network, usually while he was trying to figure out how his perfect plan had gone so spectacularly wrong. Pip said hesitantly, there's one more thing. The Kepler Investigative Committee is requesting an interview about your experiences during the transition period. Maya nodded absently, still watching the tourist ship. Trix, the ferret-like reporter who'd broken the first economic scandal story, had become something of a hero in galactic journalism. She'd won 3 major awards for her investigative series on council corruption, never knowing that her anonymous source had been sitting in council meetings the entire time. Schedule it for next week, Maya said. Make sure she knows I'm happy to discuss my observations of the period, but remind her that I was mostly focused on cultural exchange work during that time. The interview would be tricky. Maya had to maintain her cover as the innocent bystander while providing enough information to satisfy historical curiosity. The truth was, she'd become rather fond of her role as accidental galactic leader. It was like being the world's most overpowered middle manager, except instead of managing office supplies, she was managing interstellar civilizations. The telepathic abilities she'd gained from the Harmony device had evolved over time. She could now selectively tune into different communication networks, accessing information across vast distances. It made governing much easier when she could literally read the minds of other species representatives during negotiations. Counselor Rodriguez to the communications center, came an announcement over the station's intercom. Priority message from Earth. Maya made her way through corridors that were slowly being redecorated to be less sterile and intimidating. The new council had voted to implement accessibility improvements throughout the station, which mostly meant adding color, comfortable seating, and coffee shops. It was amazing how much more cooperative people became when they weren't constantly reminded that they were in a soulless bureaucratic maze. The message was from Earth's newly formed Department of Galactic Affairs, requesting her input on the selection process for additional human representatives. Maya smiled as she read the list of candidates. They were all exactly the kind of people the old council would have tried to harmony process: independent thinkers, creative problem solvers, and natural chaos agents. Perfect. Pip, she called to her assistant. Draft a response recommending approval for all candidates. And send a personal note that I'm looking forward to working with more humans who understand the value of thinking outside traditional paradigms. As she finished her daily administrative tasks, Maya reflected on the cosmic joke of her situation. The Galactic Council had tried to eliminate human unpredictability because they saw it as a threat to their ordered universe. What they hadn't realized was that chaos wasn't the enemy of order. It was the engine of evolution. Humans didn't succeed because they were stronger or smarter than other species. They succeeded because they were willing to break rules, question assumptions, and find creative solutions to impossible problems. The old council had seen that as a bug to be fixed. Maya knew it was humanity's greatest feature. Her tablet chimed with another message, this one from Blix. The exiled chef had been officially pardoned and offered a position as head of the new Cultural Arts Initiative. His underground cooking show had evolved into a galaxy-wide movement celebrating creativity and independent thinking. He'd even dedicated his latest episode to the unknown heroes who helped expose the truth. Maya leaned back in her chair, watching Earth's tourist ship complete its docking procedures. Tomorrow she'd have to deal with 300 humans loose on a space station, probably trying to tip their alien servers in Earth currency and asking if they served hamburgers in the cafeteria. It was going to be wonderfully chaotic. "Counselor," Pip said softly, "your 4:00 appointment is here. The delegation from the Zephyrian Coalition." Maya stood and straightened her formal council robes, a concession to diplomatic protocol that still made her feel like she was playing dress-up. The Zephyrians were one of the species that had suffered most under the old council's trade manipulations. Their gratitude for the new order was touching, if sometimes overwhelming. "Send them in, Pip, and make sure there's coffee available. Real Earth coffee. If we're going to rebuild galactic civilization, we might as well do it properly caffeinated." As the delegation entered, Maya activated her diplomatic smile while mentally accessing the telepathic network to gauge their thoughts and intentions. Leading a galactic government was complicated, but it had one major advantage over her old job as a xenobiologist. The aliens were no longer the mysterious ones in this relationship. She was in.